morning, Heather.
Good
Thanks
morning.
so much for coming too.
Thanks for having me.
You're so good to come all the way from California for this. I'm sure that it's probably been a packed trip, but I'm glad that you could have the opportunity to drive all the way here. Looks like you drove. I just saw your car.
We did.
That's wonderful.
I'm so excited. I love
So
what you're
wonderful.
doing, so I wanted to be part of it.
Thank you. So I'd like to have you introduce yourself.
Okay. So I'm Heather Anderson, and I've been, I'm first and foremost a mother. I have 4 of my own kids, and then recently, 3 years ago, got remarried, and I have 6 bonus kids. We call them bonus. It's much nicer than step. I just love it. I get to be like the bonus mom, and I have 7 bonus grandkids.
Wow.
So together we have quite a large family, and I'm also an educator. I've been an educator for 23 years. I've taught kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd. I have my own, now I have my own preschool in my home for the past 18 years. And I also teach music lessons to young children with a program called Let's Play Music, which I love. It's an awesome program. If anybody's heard of it, put your kid in it. It's awesome.
That sounds good.
And I also have a full-time job as a teacher for a homeschool charter school where I service 35 students and their families and just help them on their homeschool journey. I love that job. I love that whole world. It's really opened my eyes to what great, strong families look like. Mm-hmm. But long ago, I kind of, in the middle of my education journey, decided, I kind of want to be a therapist. I want to work with families. I want to help strengthen families. It kind of came about because as I've been teaching young kids, you don't just teach the kids, you also deal with their parents a lot. And I'd have moms come to me and say, I'm dealing with this problem at home with this child, and I can't get this child to eat. What should I do? And we really need to change this behavior. They'd also come to me and say, I know you've been through a divorce. They'd come to me for relationship advice. And so I've informally counseled a lot of people through a lot of parenting issues and relationship issues, and I found out that I just love that. So I started looking into what would it take to become a therapist, a marriage and family therapist. And, I was single at the time, and I was like, I don't think I can make this work. I need the income. I can't, just go to school. And then I discovered life coaching. And I decided that is actually what I've been looking for. I love the positive psychology of it, the moving forward. Life coaching is very different from therapy in that, and therapy is very much needed. I've been through a lot of therapy in my life, and it's helped me a lot, especially in my first marriage. But, it kind of looks to taking something broken and trying and kind of getting it up to base level, when you're not functioning well in your life. But life coaching takes people that are already functioning well, and they just want to be that much greater in their life, that much more happy, that much more fulfilled. And I decided that's what I was looking for.
Yes.
So I became a life coach, and I specialize in parenting and relationships, but I mainly work with mothers. So I call myself the Mommy Whisperer. And I have a podcast, and I coach moms.
I listen to it, and I really like it. I'm still raising 10 children, just like you are.
Yes. Wow.
And it's a never-ending job, of course, because you have the grandchildren, and as children get older, they still need their parents once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been such a good journey. I think I've learned more about psychology and family science that I study in life than I would have learned from books. So.
Right.
So I definitely might be just calling you. I might just need some reinforcements. But
yes, that's what I want to do for people. One of the things that made me want to get to this place was I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Laura.
Yes,
she's very
she's funny.
Stern and rubs a lot of people wrong. But I got a kick out of her, and I listened to her every single lunch break when I was working. I had young kids at home, and I was working full time in the school. And even when I was finally able to open my preschool and be home more, I would still listen to her while my kids were napping. And I even tried to call the radio show a few times because I just needed to know if my thinking was right, if this, battle I was picking with my kid was something worth fighting for, or if I was being like overly stressed about things, and or if I was on the right track and doing the right things. I also had such a difficult relationship. I just wanted kind of, that shoulder to lean on, an expert advice. Just tell me, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do different? Or do I need to just turn and walk away? Is this ridiculous what I'm dealing with? And so I tried so many times. And so to get through, and I just couldn't ever get through. Maybe my problems weren't crazy enough to be on the radio show. I don't know. But that's what I want to be for moms. I want it to be very, very easy to come to me, even if it's for just one simple little issue. They don't need to necessarily go through my whole 12-week coaching program, which is mostly for moms who they just aren't happy but not sure why. Just things don't seem right in their world. And that's more of like a let's delve deep and figure it out and set some goals. And that takes about, 12 weeks. But I also want to help moms in just 2 sessions if that's all it needs. Maybe they have just a problem with their teenager and they just feel like they're not getting through to them, and they wonder if they're even going to be able to have a relationship with their teenager because they feel like it's so broken. And we can totally get through that too. Or maybe it's a relationship question. So I want to kind of be that for moms, really easy to get to, just a person to come to that can help them figure things out.
What a wonderful thing. I think we all need a mom.
Yeah.
Sometimes our moms are not quite the person that we actually could consult with.
I think everyone would do well having a life coach, even for a small time in their life.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you can do when you just have some awareness of yourself. And it's amazing the things you can accomplish when you just have somebody to talk it through and reflect back to you what needs to happen next.
Right. So how do we find you? I'm like, I got to take notes. I got to find you.
So, I have the podcast, The Mommy Whisperer.
That's beautiful.
But also I have a website, the-mommywhisperer.com. And
which one? What was?
The-mommywhisperer.com.
Oh,
kind of the Mommy Whisperer.
Okay. Mommy Whisperer.
Yeah.
M-M-O...
M-O-M-M-Y. And then, W-H-I-S-P-E-R-E-R. Is that right?
.com. the-mommywhisperer.com.
So right when you enter the page, it's a cartoon picture of me whispering into a mom's ear, and she's kind of having these like epiphanies. And that's what I want to be, just like we've worked together enough, maybe, where I've given you some ideas, we've talked through enough things, where then when you're going, I just want to lift you up. I want to coach myself right out of a job. I don't want you to feel like you need me constantly. I'd love to give you enough tools to where you're like, I've got this. I remember what we talked about. And they just kind of hear what we talked about in their ear. And so that was really meaningful to me to have that on the front page. But then right below it says, sign up for a free 30-minute session with me, coaching call. Nice. And I just kind of gauge where they're at, and I let them know, I think that we can deal with this in maybe just 2 sessions, or maybe you'll need just 4. Or, you know what, I see some deeper things here. You might want to spend 2 months with me. But I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're coming to me indefinitely unless they want to. Some people do. They just want that in their life, that support every week. They know that they can bring all their questions and issues, But it's been so fun.
I'm getting my 30-minute session right here.
It's been the most fun thing I've ever done. It's been my dream for so long, and I'm just so excited about it.
I noticed yesterday when you came to my home, and I know your husband, from our traveling to the Middle East with him. And so he knew my little daughter, Rose, who was in my last episode. Of January.
Yeah, she's
and it was
so
great. Fun that she just lit up with you guys, and I felt
that too.
She just lit up, and she was so excited to see you, even though she hadn't met you. But the questions you were asking her, I was like, wow, this is like therapy level. I love it. You're feeling different from this and that, and she just opened up. The questions were phrased non-threatening, even though they were really deep. Because I study psychology and stuff. I thought, whoa, she already has the PhD psychology part. So I'm glad you brought up the idea of awareness. When a mother is aware of what's happening in her life, and it's easier for her to pinpoint the problem, so she can start to work on towards that. So that's the reason I invited you to come to my podcast this month. We are talking about awareness since it is January, and for anybody to have a great result on anything, that person needs to know where they stand. Because if you don't know where you are, how would you know where you need to go?
Exactly.
And if you don't know where you want to go, then you're really kind of floating in life. And life is so short. And we know that, especially with the whole COVID mess and stuff, we know that it's also not something you can just assume that it's going to be always the same and always simple. So I am so grateful you could come all the way from California. It's so exciting. Parts of awareness that I showed you this last night. This is our whole core for the year. And they're essential emotions. And essentialemotions.com is where you would find a copy of this and the wonderful book. And it was put together by a team. And my connection there is Natalie Goddard, who has been a wonderful mentor to me through doTERRA and through just friendship. And I just wanted to read to the awareness list, which I think is really good. And I found some of the words interesting, different than I would have picked, right? Because the first one is unattached. And I thought, what? How does that have to do with, what does that have to do with awareness? And I keep thinking with motherhood, if you become too attached to your role, it can really cause you some problems.
Yes.
Because if you define yourself as how your children turn out, and these children are not your own, we talked about last year. Yes, it was last year. It was December. I'm thinking, I am so confused by the months and the years now, because they all blend into one big COVID year. We talked about how parents sometimes think their children are made out of Play-Doh, and they make them be part of an enmeshed situation. But it's not necessarily healthy, and it doesn't allow the children to progress, because they really are seeds, and you're supposed to be that fertile ground where they can be nurtured and grow. Love to have you talk about any of these things. Let me just read out the line.
Well, I wanted to say, I think that's exactly what unattached means. And I work with my moms on that, because if their idea of success as a mother all stems from, their kids going to Harvard or whatever they think makes them look successful as a mother, and it has to do with other people's choices, we have to reevaluate that. We have to figure out something separate from how others' choices make them turn out. So yes, we have to unattach ourselves from that. So maybe we need to redefine success as a mother as I feel like I've expressed my love to my kids in this way each day, or through these actions, but all my own choices. It has to come back to me, because if we are so wrapped up in everybody else's choices having to define us as a successful mother, we're going to be disappointed every single time.
Yes.
And so to have awareness of self, we do need to have our personal boundaries and our understanding of ourselves and our understanding of what we can contribute as a mother all on our own. And that be more of what our success looks like.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can really be devastating.
I like that.
So I like how you explained unattached, but keep going.
I have lived that. As a young mother, thinking that they really, because that's how I grew up, hearing that the children are just a mirror of yourself. Everything they do reflects your poor parenting or your good parenting. So then they become objects for you to look good until they don't, and then they just destroy your heart, right? So I really like that. Thanks for that wisdom.
And we're not even always self-aware of our feelings, because we do get so wrapped up in serving our families, right? That we don't always even know how we feel. So I help these mothers understand what their feelings are. They even need to find themselves. Like, I know that's so cliche, find yourself, but they need to understand what makes them tick. What do they enjoy? And be okay taking some of that. If you like reading a book, that's not just a selfish thing. If your kids see you on the couch reading a book every day for a certain amount of time because you enjoy it, that's going to be such a great example to them too, that they are always their own person, even when they're someone else's parent.
Because you could become a martyr. I mean, motherhood is one of those jobs that is very dangerous if you do not have your own limits. And we talked about yesterday. What are your limits? What are your needs? Where do you begin? Because I grew up with that idea. Mothers in Latin America, at least back when I grew up, last century.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was. They were expected to do everything for their children. The house has to be perfect. Everything has to be well done and it cooks meal, everything cooked from scratch. I mean, all that stuff, and that's okay. But you could never take the time to just be yourself.
Yes.
Because you no longer belong to yourself. So this is the second week in January, and we're talking about awareness in a family. And I, of course, wanted to start with a mother because like this wheel, she's right at that core. You know, I don't know if you read the Lindbergh book when she's wonderful, and she talks about how if there's no mother, if this was like a wagon wheel, the center, if the mother is not there and she's not present and not really doing her job of connecting and loving and nurturing and all the things that a mother needs to do, then the spokes are off balance. So then that cart just does not behave smoothly towards any destination. So, all right, so let's see. The other one. There it is. Aligned. What do you think about that word?
Oh, I love that. And that goes along with a lot of what I was talking about too. You have to be aligned and happy within yourself. You have to be so self-aware and so self-accepting, even of your weaknesses. Because I've come to find out our weaknesses that we're told by others that might be our weaknesses. I'm a perfect example of this. I was told by others that, you know, I had stress and anxiety. Well, I've come to find out those aren't weaknesses, and they're actually normal everyday things that I shouldn't be ashamed of. They actually make me great. They make me driven. They make me able to love my family better because I am a little bit worried of this or that, or I'm a little bit stressed of, oh, I don't have enough ingredients for dinner tonight. I got to go to the store and get those. Like, you know, it actually makes me better. It's not a problem. But I was told, especially in my first marriage, that it was such a problem, and I'm not overly stressed or overly anxious to where it's a problem, but it's something that we all deal with. Anything new, you know, we're going to be anxious and worried about. You know, we just are. Some people on a higher level than others, but for me to have accepted that about myself, and I actually now love that about myself, and I think it makes me and great for others. And I'm able to, actually, I've discovered that I'm able to love others because of that part of myself. I'm able to love them so well because I'm putting in that thought and concern, right? So I'm now so much more aligned because I've had this awareness of my strengths and weaknesses, and I love myself anyway, and I'm pretty darn great. But so many of us are just spinning and beating ourselves up and all the negative self-talk that we do.
Especially mothers.
Especially mothers. And not even knowing that we have any personal boundaries or that we are a person that isn't just flowing, meshing into all the other people in our family, that we are an individual and we are worthy just by being here. Right. But that alignment is so powerful. The things you can do when you're aligned, you know?
And I think you need to remember to align yourself to your creator, because I think most of the time what makes us really in trouble, gets us in trouble, is aligning ourselves to the people around us.
Yes.
Because if the people around us are people that don't care about doing the best that they should be doing, whatever, then we kind of fall into that. You know, I'm just gonna look at Facebook all day long, and who cares about dinner? You know, and who cares about the house? Who cares about that? It's just I'm me, and I want to do this. Or if we align ourselves with people that are over the top achievers, and we are under stress constantly and thinking, I have to have a career, and I have to be a size 2, and I have to make bread from scratch and homeschool my children, and then you become completely unaligned with the reality of your strengths.
Yes.
And I'm glad you brought this up, because have you heard of the term confident vulnerability? Which I love. You know, it's the idea of you're very good at some things, and you're not so good at other things, and that's meant to be like that.
Yeah, and being willing to admit that to yourself, and sometimes even to others.
Yes.
It makes you so much better if you can just be willing to admit your weaknesses and even talk about them.
Yeah.
You know, even talk about them with your children. You know, I overreacted about that because I was just going through this thing, and this is, you know, what I was thinking in my head, and it's just silly now, but I'm sorry, I overreacted. You know, to come to your kid and apologize when you are wrong.
That's so huge.
And let them see you as a human that makes mistakes.
Yeah.
There are so many lessons in there for children to see. You know, so when they grow up, they don't have to be a perfect person just because they're a mom. You know, our kids think we must be perfect because we're mom.
Until
so
they're like
when they
15.
But yeah, and then they see that
out.
we're not perfect, right? But then if they also hear that we also know we're not perfect, and they also hear our vulnerable weaknesses, and we're confident enough in them that we can even talk about them. They'll learn so much. They'll be such a better human.
Yes, because I think, I don't know where the idea came from, but the idea that somehow when you're a mother, you just become perfect.
Right.
And you do everything right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, great.
Like your daughter did last night.
I know, that was so,
So
cute. That little face, that Rosie is such a joy. Okay, here we are. This wheel is messing me up. So self-control. Tell me about that in motherhood.
Oh, yes, right?
That's like, that's probably the hardest thing.
Oh, yes.
Like today I had no sleep. So probably I shouldn't be talking to people after 6 o'clock.
Right, I know. And the self-control really goes out the window when you're, sleepwalking, right? When I call it zombie. I'm just a zombie today. But, yeah, self-control is tough because we are, mothers by nature, we're emotional creatures, right?
Yes,
So,
women in general.
Yeah. And when you have high expectations of yourself and those around you,
yes.
I always tell my kids, don't pit me against the clock. I will become a lunatic. Like that is when, the self-control goes out the window, right?
Yeah, having a teenager and a newborn. I did that a couple of times. Oh,
not very many have done that.
Oh, that was interesting. I'm glad I got my Rosie.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's what I was waiting for. My Rosie and my Rachel, my only two girls. You met them last night. And, but yeah, it's really tough to have an 18-year-old and you have to wait for them to get home because they already have a car. And then the baby wakes up at 3 a.m. and so that self-control is
And I
so
work with moms
important.
who think they have to be perfect and that they're upset with themselves because they lost their mind with their kids,
Yes.
But that's another part of self-acceptance. And there are, I do teach some of my mom's relaxation techniques, I even give myself a timeout at times. The other night I was really overwhelmed at dinner time. I didn't like the conversation. It was just really going south. And I said, you know what, I'll be right back. And I'm sure my family was like, what did we say? But they were a little bit like offensive and out of control. And I could tell myself getting, too emotionally charged.
Yes.
I just went up to my office, checked some emails, just breathed through it, came back down and acted like nothing happened. And the conversation had changed and but I gave myself a timeout.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not like I'm perfect, but I can't hold a grudge against myself when I'm not. There has to be so much forgiveness of self.
Yes.
And there has to be that vulnerability with your kids. And when you are wrong, it's okay to apologize. You're not losing any respect. You're actually gaining respect. Yeah. I don't say apologize to kids when they're mad at you because you took their cell phone because of something they did. They need to understand that. And I'm very big on they need to understand that was their choice, not you. You're not the bad guy. You didn't do anything wrong. But those times, and there's going to be many, when you lose your self-control, to definitely get through it as quick as possible. Swallow the pride, apologize if needed, be vulnerable, give yourself a timeout in the middle of it. But yes, that awareness of okay, I'm losing my cool right now. Got to go have a timeout. It's all part of awareness. So that's brilliant that's on there too.
So I'm sure you're familiar with parenting with love and logic.
Yes.
Which is, I think every parent needs to know that
really
exists
do.
because we end up just being so frustrated with the children for something they did that they see us as the problem instead of saying, hey, this is just a consequence. We love you a lot. And because we love you, we're not going to allow you to use your phone if you are up all night on your phone or, something as simple as that. And yes, they might still be frustrated, but it's those limits that we're talking about. I agree with being friends with your children, but also it has to be the kind of friend that doesn't just allow you to do things that are going to destroy you. So there's a limit there.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to take your 12-week course. I think I'm just going to do that. So this one is really interesting, the next one, because balanced ambition, that is tough. We touched up on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, the idea that we want them to go to Harvard or we wanted to do this and that as if it was an extension of ourselves and how good we want to look. But also on the other side, so we want to be a doctor and still have the children and still have homemade meals. And I mean, how would you balance that? Because there are people that are really great at many things. How do you prioritize? Is it a seasons thing?
Yeah, you shouldn't ask me right now because I feel very imbalanced with trying to get everything off the ground and keeping my other jobs. But yes, balance is so important. And balancing the time with your kids, but also the things that you want to accomplish in life, and also what you expect of yourself, and having enough time for your spouse. And it's all a balancing act constantly. And yeah, probably in seasons you feel more balanced than others.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah.
very important.
And the ambition is interesting because I lived in Maryland for a while, and I'm a full-time mother too. But I do go to school, and I have this foundation, and I do a lot of traveling, trying to develop countries. I mean, I do a couple of things on the side. But it was funny, she didn't know me. And she was a mother was very, very depressed because she knew because she grew up in the 80s like I did, that women that stayed home was because they had no ambition, because they had no dreams for their life. They were just relegated to wiping diapers and washing dishes. And that's what she had been told her whole life. So she was a journalist, and she was very accomplished, and then chose to be a mother, and then worked for a while, then realized she couldn't do both because she really liked those children. She realized the children were worth staying home for. And that was very hard on her. And she still struggles with depression because she thinks, I have gone so far the other way. I have no personality, no ambition. And my mother was right, because her mother was a career person. And you're a career person, I'm a career person. We're both feminists, but like maternal feminists, right? So there's a difference there. But I just thought, that really completely destroyed her balance, because she thought it had to be extreme on either side. And I think it's funny when people say, oh, if you're a mother, what do you do all day?
Yes.
We can get into that another time.
Right. Yes. I have a lot to say about that too, because, and I'll just say just really quick, balanced ambition also on the other side is if you're not balanced and with your ambitions, for example, if you're sleeping all day while the kids are at school and waiting till your husband gets home to do all the dishes that have accumulated in the sink, you're actually going to internally, even if you don't want to admit it, beat yourself up and maybe even deal with some depression. Because if there's also no ambition because it's so imbalanced, that's also a problem, right? So I'm on the other side where it's too much and I have to stop and slow down and make sure I'm spending time with the people who I love. But then there's that other side. So everything needs to be more balanced. So if you're not doing and being and contributing, that's another side of it that I also help moms explore. Why am I feeling so unfulfilled? That's sometimes part of it.
And that's that aligning with the divine again. Because you do have gifts, you do have strengths, and yes, for a season you could choose to be home full time, which I did. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they were all 2 years apart, and it was important to me for me to contribute to the world well-educated, well-seasoned, well-done children, because that was my legacy beyond my life. Something that, and of course, sometimes I took it too far into my heart. And when some of them did not choose to do the Harvard thing or the perfect kid thing, it really crushed me. But I learned to separate, like we talked about the first one being unattached a little. And this month, every month, I like to talk about a little book. We talked about in the peace episodes, we talked about The Anatomy of Peace, which is a wonderful book, just very well done, and it helps figure out how to find peace, almost like an anatomy lesson, So I just wanted to show this little book for this month, and it's called Strengths Finder 2.0 by Tom Rath. And it's the positive psychology that you had talked about before in the beginning. That's what attracted you. So there was a psychologist in the 1950s that decided that psychology was such a powerful science, but it was being used only for broken, instead of what do we have that is good that we can build on. So he bought an entire company to do the research to figure out what are the strengths that humans have. And what they came up with is that there are 36 strengths that every human has. Oh. Every single one of us. They are just in different orders. So my number one is strategy, which is kind of cool.
Okay, I like it.
I have to have strategy if I have 10 children and I have to travel. And I made the mistake of reading the book ahead of time, and I shouldn't have. I had to retake the test because it made me bias into, I want to be
what you
this
want
kind
be.
of person.
Okay.
So I was a little tainted once I took the test.
So take the test first, then read the book.
Yes, yes. And the little book brings a little scratch You don't have to sniff it, but scratch and sniff thing.
Oh, my
It gives you-
preschoolers would be sad. They live for the scratch and sniff stickers.
I know, those stickers from the 80s. So anyway, that just makes me think about, like what you were saying about having ambition.
Mhm.
What are those things that we can do in whatever role or season we're in?
Mhm.
So the first 20 years of my married life, I had a baby and I was nursing and pregnant and all that stuff and diapers, and that's what it was. But I could not possibly have done a whole lot more.
Mhm.
But I did listen to books while I had to iron,
Mhm.
while I did dishes. I couldn't leave my brain to rust.
Yes.
And sometimes I worry about us moms that do the mom thing, which I think is glorious,
Mhm.
because somebody has to raise those children into
Mhm.
a better world for the next generation.
Yes.
It's a sacrifice, but also it's a huge learning opportunity. I mean, everything we're talking about, you've learned it on the field.
Mhm.
Probably have more power than somebody that studied it in a
Mhm.
book. Anyway, so let's talk about the next one. Authentic.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, tell me. That's a tough one, right?
Yes.
How are you an authentic mother and an authentic family?
Mhm.
It's hard when the neighbors show up, and that's the time that, like, did you see my little nephew last night?
Yes.
Nephew,
Your
grandchild.
grandchild. Yeah.
When he jumped on the couch, did you hear
Mhm.
what he said?
What did he say? I didn't.
So I was just meeting you, we were trying to be all impressing
Yeah.
each other. And he jumps on the couch and puts his legs up and he says, but.
That's so funny. That's right.
Right.
I didn't really hear him, but now I can picture that that's what he was saying.
And if it was 30 years ago, if it was my own son, I would have been, oh, she'll never think of me as a normal person again.
Mhm.
And I'm like, it's a child, you know.
Mhm.
How are we authentic with our strengths and what the interesting thing about the Strengths Finder idea is that they don't talk about weaknesses. They talk about blind spots.
Oh, interesting.
I might
like
be,
that.
isn't that great?
Okay.
It might be. I might be really good at this one, number one, and the first 5 are usually where you operate the best.
Mhm.
But I am really not good at number 34,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Yes, and that's okay, right?
That's okay.
We're not supposed to be perfect. There
No,
would be no
because-
growth.
And there'll be no connection.
Mhm.
If we were all perfect, we'd be marbles. We wouldn't be puzzle pieces.
Yes.
Right? So we
yes.
couldn't connect. So what do you think about authenticity?
Oh, I think it is so important. Well, I'm big on like not being a hypocrite. Like it's just always been something that just really bothers me so we can't care so much about what we look like to everybody else. And it's that vulnerability. The authenticness goes back to the vulnerability, right?
Yes, yes.
So we just need to be real with ourselves, real with our
Yes.
kids, and real with
Yes.
everybody around us. And we will actually help connect ourselves with others even more if we are authentic.
Yes, yes.
We don't have to appear perfect ever.
that.
Not all the time, but not ever, really.
yeah.
Nobody really needs that. It just makes people feel bad too. Like we want to
Yeah.
connect, we've got to be authentic. I love
Yeah.
that.
And I'm going to say something very unpopular.
Go for it.
So I grew up in Guatemala,
Mhm.
and then we moved to Boston. My husband was going to MIT,
Mhm.
and we lived in Maine and Massachusetts and different places like that. And then I moved to Utah Valley.
Mhm.
Oh, that was such a shock, frustrating moment for me. And even though I love it now, I was just like, okay, ladies, who do you think you're pretending to lie to? Because it was this, I have a perfect house.
Mhm.
And I have a perfect outfit, and I have perfect hair, and my meals are perfect. And then I have perfect children.
Mhm.
And I think the lack of authenticity,
Mhm.
like really lying to ourselves
Yes,
and
yes.
pretending that somehow we're all perfect,
Mhm.
can cause major problems.
Major problems,
Yeah.
major mental health issues
Yes.
too, and
Yes.
depression and
Yes, and anxiety.
yeah, and self-loathing.
Yes.
Behind closed doors to keep up that facade,
Yes.
and then behind closed doors, how must they feel? And I had a
Yes.
couple friends move from California to Utah Valley.
Did they say the
and
same?
It was very, very hard on them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like Barbie Town, and I
Mhm.
get it. I'm never gonna look like Barbie. I've got my own look, but it was very hard to try to fit into that Barbie Town. And
That makes sense.
yeah, but you had to learn to understand yourself and not try to, like I was saying, you can't be fitting in horizontally. You know, it
Mhm.
really had to be. You can do whatever, yeah, horizontally,
Mhm.
because you just don't. You only see the best of people.
Mhm.
And I had a friend that actually was so obsessed with her house. I mean, so obsessed with her house that her children had to play outside day and day,
Okay.
all day long, winter and summer. She didn't want those children inside messing her house. And I don't know about my children, but if I did that, why would they ever want to come back?
Yeah.
Right? Why would her house was more important than the children. And that's sad to me. But
well, that goes back with discovering ourselves and loving ourselves, because if we love ourselves and accept ourselves, we are secure in our skin.
Yes.
And we are just great just the way we are.
Yes.
So a lot of that is insecurity. So you really have to do a lot of self-work and a lot of thought work to changing your thoughts so that you don't, put your kids outside because what other people think of our house is more important than our own children.
Right.
So sometimes working with a coach helps you discover things you didn't even know about yourself, or you didn't even know were a little bit broken and needs a little bit of fixing. But we mostly do see what are we doing right? Where can we go from there? But
I like that, yeah.
but really working with a coach is like putting a mirror in front of your face.
Yeah.
You're really seeing
Definitely
yourself
awareness.
in very much awareness. And you become authentic. And the things these moms can do when they are secure and confident in themselves.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping them. They can accomplish anything.
Yes, and it's great that you brought the idea of love. So next month is going to be, in my little wheel, is going to be about love. It's Valentine's. That was an easy match.
That's great. Perfect.
and that is the first thing we're going to address. How do you love yourself, and how do you discover the divine inside you to realize that there is an unconditional love, a perfect love in there that God already put in there, because the whole world can fail us.
Yes.
The children are not there to please us. Our husband is not there to please us. Our friends, nobody's there to please us or make us feel better about ourselves. That's not the plan. We're there to serve. We're there to love, but we also have that inside love.
Yes.
That if we discover that, then you can be authentic and all those beautiful
And that
things.
is the most important love, because you are contributing your own happiness within to your family, which then bleeds out into the society. Like, you have to find that happiness, that love of yourself, that security, that confidence.
Yeah, and that comes from the divine again, like we talked about. So there are 4 more. Let me read them out loud, and let's see which ones we want to really discuss. So honesty, we pretty much discussed, because it's authentic and honesty. Oh, this is interesting. So there's a balanced male energy, responsible and humble. I like that. And I think balanced male energy, we're talking about women.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me about those 3. What do you think?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Can I just pick humble? Humble just goes with the, vulnerable, I feel like, and everything we just talked about.
Yeah.
You're humble enough to admit weaknesses. You're humble enough to know you're not perfect and be okay with it.
And confident enough.
Yes.
To be vulnerable.
Yes.
To know I have strengths and weaknesses. I can contribute in this, and I need help on the other.
Yes.
Yeah,
and it's okay.
like
And it's okay. I'm fine just the way I am. It's okay that I need help in this. And
yeah.
But
you can't be aware
why
without
don't
being
you
humble.
speak to the balanced male energy?
Because I have 8 sons. Okay, I'll speak on that. And of course, responsible. That's huge. Being able to be and we already addressed that.
The balanced ambition, finding what your responsibilities are and what's important to you.
Yeah. I have too many women say to me, I'm just a mom.
Yeah.
Like there are no expectations.
It's not just anything. It's a huge, all-encompassing, overwhelming obligation. Like you've got to figure out what that means for you, what you value, what would you define your success to be? We're not just a mom.
Yeah.
It's the most important job in the world.
It's interesting because actually this kind of goes with the balanced male energy. I have 8 sons. You met some of them last night. And once in a while, I just feel like I'm failing at everything. It's just I think we just kind of have those moments that keep us humble. And and I have this son that is now on a mission. And I was having one of those days. And he was younger. He was, 12, something like that. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, the house is a mess, and the children, but he has always been like 50 years old inside. So I was able to talk to him like a 50-year-old.
I love that.
And he just looks at me and he said, Mom, so you're feeling that your motherhood is not good enough, or that you're just a mom and it's just not enough for you. And he said, now let me tell you how I see it. And he's great. He said, Dad goes to work. And they pay him stuff, and he brings money home, and we have a nice house because of that and all that stuff. But Mom, you create life, you maintain life, you make sure that life means something to somebody, and then the future is based on how you treat that life that you have creating and maintaining. So I think your job is pretty important. And he said it's not only that, but Dad's job is simple. He goes, there are books to do, there are problems, like it's very finite. Right, so he's a CEO of a company, and yes, it's a big job and it's difficult. And he was our guest last week. He's wonderful, but it's finite. You go home and you can't close your computer. But he said, Mom, you have this day and night and on and on and on, and I believe that families are forever. I can't imagine that there is a creator out there that would make us so bonded to somebody, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, you're dead, bye.
Yes.
So that's my belief. And I think that brings that level of commitment even higher as a mother, because now I get to see these people forever. So I can build those deeper relationships. So the balancing the male energy on, I want to accomplish and I want to be in charge and stuff, people see it sometimes as negative. But I think, and it's funny that it's even called male.
Yeah.
But it's easier to understand that way because we see the world that way. So what would be your last words for our almost hour? It's been so fun to talk to you.
Yes, it's been great. Has it been that long already? You're so easy
I think
to
so.
talk to.
My little clock. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just have loved being here, and I love what you're doing, and I'm so excited that you invited me to be here. And I just feel like all moms need a little bit of support sometimes, and I'm hoping that through what you're doing, through what I'm doing, we can help strengthen the moms, because there's no better way to strengthen society than by the mothers first. So,
thank
and
you.
the families, yes.
Oh, thank you so much. We discussed last night my foundation, the Sustainable Families. And our website is sustainablefamilies.group.
Okay.
Which is a little unusual, but the idea that the world would be a better place if every family and every mother, starting with the mother, would take it seriously, their role of lifting each other up. And the more we see the breakdown of families, and I'm not talking about a divorce because of abuse, right? You've gone through that. You know how it feels. Nobody should have to be abused to stay in some broken thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are we in my home looking at Facebook all day and letting the whole world fall apart because I'm just a mom.
Yeah, just
and the
a
2-year-old
mom.
can just play games all day. Oh, yeah, and he has his phone. He can just play. There's no connection. There's no improving of the world if that's just a babysitting job, But thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
your
you for
time.
having me.
Yeah, and I go back to my cold day, and you go to California.
Yes.
It's not
So
fair.
lucky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. It was so fun to have a conversation with my friend Heather Anderson, the mommy whisperer. I wish she was around when I had little kids. We talked about all kinds of really great ideas of awareness that would help us through this coming year, especially as mothers, but to any of us. If you want to learn more, visit @peacetoday.com.